I have to tell them the truth. I don't have a choice. I've seen what happens when you try to kind of steer people the way you want them to go rather than the way the current is actually going, and it doesn't serve anybody. So, I used to want to be liked. That was a really big goal for me, was like, everybody loves me. And don't get me wrong, I still want that, but it's not as important as letting the truth dictate what happens.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Sarah Jones is an actor. In her hit one-person show Sell By Date, she embodied many different characters to talk about the very complex issue of sex work in America. When she set out to make a film version, she received backlash for telling stories of sex workers without being one herself. The controversy caused high-profile producers to drop out. But instead of ignoring it or letting it kill the production, Jones instead made a hybrid documentary/personal metafilm about letting the controversy lead the way toward a larger enlightenment around the issue. The result is Sell By Date, the film, which features Sarah Jones and 4 of her characters from the play, all played by Jones herself, taking a journey across the country to listen to real people telling personal stories about their experiences that land them on both sides of various aspects of the topic. Sarah Jones sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work.
Sarah Jones, you made the most important film I've seen this year. And it's not only that, it's incredibly entertaining. And maybe most important for someone like me, who's a little bit snobbish about films, it's radical in its form. But so I want to almost apologize to listeners right now because there's so much to talk about with this that I'm going to be like all around. I'm so excited and I'm so interested in so many things. I have so many questions, so many aspects of this that it might be a little bit disjointed because of how excitable I am. But I want to start by, let's talk about, because this is an acting podcast, and we have to talk about your supporting characters in this, who you hauled in from your one-woman show. And I like a word that comes up to me when I think about you with these people is preternatural. You're preternaturally talented in this way. These people are alive. There's a point in the movie where I'm like watching it, and then I had to tell myself after the scene, that was the same person that just was talking to herself. Like the magic of movies, happened there. And then there was another magic going on. The magic of Sarah Jones was happening at the same time. And it's like, I'm like, what? But it was a real scene. Like that's stuff I don't understand. But first you had all these people in a one-woman show. And I guess I want to know, like, what's the process of developing these people, or are they just birthed through you? And then talk about how you had to haul them into cinema.
Yeah, I mean, if I could have scripted what a discerning person who cares about film and acting and, ideas generally, and particularly that hopefully stoke our humanity in the best ways, right? If I could have scripted what someone might say after seeing the film, I could not have done a better job. I'm sitting here trying to hold my shape, as Alana Glazer says in the film, while allowing in the very human moment of all the dark nights of the soul, dark afternoons of the soul, all of the ways that I thought no one's going to get this. It's too much. There's so much here as an actor, as, someone whose goal is to not duplicate what I do on stage, but hopefully make use of this movie magic opportunity that I don't usually have. Usually, right. If I want to have a conversation, Lorraine Levine gets her monologue on stage when I do the stage performance, and she doesn't argue for the most part with the other ones. We want to sit with these people and let them have their time and feel their breakfast, for better or worse. So there's that. And in the film, I get to do all of what you just said so kindly, beautifully, generously. I wanted a conversation, a rich, and I want people to feel like they've been at a dinner party. I want them to feel like they've been a fly on the wall at like in a brothel, at a union meeting for sex workers. I want them to feel like, they've suddenly had a conversation with their grandma or their great grandma, not to freak anybody out, but we're sexual beings from the moment we're born till the day we die. I wanted to see if we could get in there and have all of those textures. I feel like I just live quoting the movie. I think Bryan Cranston says textures, flavors and textures in the film as well. But this is a very long-winded way of saying, and I feel like I lost your question somewhere in that phyllo dough of response, but I hoped, speaking of phyllo dough, I wanted layers. I wanted delicious, and maybe it's a little heavy at moments and you go, oh, they could have gone lighter with this, but I wanted to not miss any opportunity to examine a topic that we mostly sanitize, make so reductive that it has no resemblance to its complexity out in the world. And I thought, what if we could make a film that explores some of this and is entertaining? What if that's a thing? And, characters are how I've always done that. I want to hear from a Greek chorus, or I want to hear from a diversity of opinions. And I embody those opinions myself, usually on stage. With this film, it was, all right, everybody, you're going to argue. We're going to have a Thanksgiving table, type of family experience of disagreement, of people changing their minds midstream. I wanted all of that. So that's what the characters helped me do, I hope.
I think when it really hit me with what you're talking about is when you get back from the Lotus Lane interview. I was like, oh, okay, this changes the way I think about it. And you get to your mom. Then your mom starts talking, and it touches that thing in me that is like shame. And I'm like, oh, wait. That's bringing that up. Then I started to realize this is a complexity here that you're working with. And that now that's the journey that this is going to be. And that's what it was, back and forth. And I think that's really, really, it's going to be difficult for people. It's going to be very difficult for people because they're coming in with a very strong belief. I mean, you've already faced this. The structure of this film is because, people have strong beliefs and have strong opinions, and you adjusted the structure because of that. And that's why I think, like, once I fully realized that you're leaning into that, me as a film kind of snob wanting things to be different, I'm like, all right, she really did something here different.
Yeah, I can tell you that we had a therapist under contract doing the kind of delving that you're talking about, which I asked the audience to join me. I'm, kind of piecing it together as I go along. And it isn't easy to look at any of this. I don't want to look at it, but I tell people, don't have a gummy before you watch this movie. You'll get lost. Try to sit there and be with yourself and have an experience of meeting yourself. That's what I hope this film, I got to meet myself and my messiness and come away with a sense of compassion for everybody because of the amazing people I interview, whom I've often been taught to think of as marginal or deviant or, problematic in some way I should avoid. God forbid anybody thinks I'm, like I'm slut shaming myself after, decades of mixed messages. And I think a lot of women do. And then it confuses, this is a heteronormative context we're talking about, but it confuses men. I mean, one of my favorite, I want to, what is it? A virgin in the streets, a whore in the sheets. I don't want to be a virgin or a whore. And I don't want you to get to tell me what I get to be. Right. So all of that, I got to see my own reactivity to basically like centuries of messaging that we've all been exchanging knowingly or unknowingly about the most natural, basic parts of ourselves and how we navigate them in a society like this. So yeah, it was a wild ride meeting myself, but I got to tell you, there's nothing quite like getting to throw off all of the shame, all of the stigma, whatever we've ever been where, oh, I have this kink, I have that. You're welcome here.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever is going on with you, you're welcome, and welcome those parts of yourself. That's what I learned on this journey.
I don't know if you know the work of Kaveh Zahedi. I work with him. He does a lot of personal filmmaking. He made a movie called I Am a Sex Addict. There's a very similar thing that you two have, which is that you're not afraid to share stuff, personal stuff. There are things that go on in this where you're like, wait, even someone like me who works in the meta, I hate that word because what's his name stole it, but it's real. It really happened, but you don't know like how much of it is manufactured for this particular piece of cinema. And I couldn't help but think throughout this, what would this film have been like without the controversy? I'm almost, as a viewer, thankful for the controversy because you adjusted, it seems to me, and made a movie almost because you had to deal with it in this way, and it became a meta movie because of that. But can you just talk a little bit about that? Maybe you don't want to, open up the curtain too much on this, and I would understand. But I would just like to know, like, what that process was of having to adjust. I mean, like, sometimes things happen and you're like, this is the end. But you adjust and you're like, wow, this is a different kind of art that I didn't even, couldn't imagine to have made.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, right, getting to the meta of it all, it feels like a metaphor in its own way for life. I have had so many experiences that I think this is the end. This is disaster. This is the thing I feared the most. And here it is. And when people see the film, they'll find out what my personal relationship is to, a lot of this topic that we're talking about. But I think all of life, and therefore all art making, is adjusting in real time, one way or another. You can suppress it, you can repress it, you can, try to kind of throw a bushel over it, or you can lean all the way into what's real. I knew I was making a documentary, a sort of, I called it an unorthodox, because it was an unorthodox way of treating the realities that I experienced, writing the play, performing it. It's a wild thing to have something that, as a one-person show, I had people Cher came to my show. I was at a little theater at the Geffen in LA, and Cher walks in. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? The play itself already had its own kind of, now I'm stuck, metaverse. No, it already had its own universe. Mm. And then when the larger universe said, hey, here's, some unexpected, disturbing, challenging, new material that you get to work with. I mean, isn't life like that? I don't know anyone whose project goes exactly the way they anticipate it going. You lose your lead, or, COVID happens or whatever. And I had to let this thing make itself in a lot of ways. I know that sounds woo-woo, but fortunately I had the, I won't call it the bliss of ignorance, but I had the naivete of being a first-time director, and I just kept saying, I know what I see. I know what I see in my head. I know that I want to depict the truth, whatever that is. And if it tells me it's something new tomorrow, I will do my level best to be honest, because as you mentioned, it's not about me. It's about how can I hopefully be a vehicle for other people to, kind of hop in and go for a ride. If I can be useful in that way as a kind of, I want to be the gondolier. I want people to get in and go with me. And that I have to tell them the truth. I don't have a choice. I've seen what happens when you try to kind of steer people the way you want them to go rather than the way the current is actually going, and it doesn't serve anybody. So I used to want to be liked. That was a really big goal for me. It was like, everybody loves me. And don't get me wrong, I still want that, but it's not as important as letting the truth dictate what happens.
I don't know if Nareda is there with you in the hotel room. She has
so can I just say one thing, Peter?
Yes.
So Sarah Jones is like an Airbnb. She kind of doesn't, she thinks she's controlling the policies and everything, but we just check in, we do what we need to do. So I'm here. Hi, I'm Nereda. I'm happy to be here. I am in the film. I hope I'm a voice of reason. Dios mío, we need something.
Well,
anyway.
You had a moment in this movie in the car, Nereda. I can't roll my R's or whatever that's properly.
Okay. You don't have to do that. Just help us get kids out of cages. We'll roll the R's for you. That's fine. Yeah.
Deal.
Yeah.
The moment in the car is like what you say to Sarah when she leaves. Actually, you're talking to us, I think. It's a monologue. And
it's a monologue.
Yeah, it took me a second to realize, like, this is the same person that just got out of the car. And so that's one of the things I was talking about, where it's like the way that's spoken, the way that's said is so powerful because a message was delivered to me that kind of changed my view. But it was delivered from a character in a film that's almost serves many times a comedic purpose. So that's what's so unique about your talent. There are people that transform themselves in one person shows, and they play people and it's funny and they're good with voices. You're beyond that. This is an embodiment of another person. So just talk to me about that, though. I want to know, and particularly in that scene where just the logistics of filming that and everything, which you've never had to do before, I'm imagining.
In the same way that I feel the film sort of found itself, wrote itself, shot itself through me, to sound even more woo-woo than earlier, I feel like there were implausible miracle moments that happened with collaborators. And Joshua Weinstein, for people who are familiar with Menashe, or, any of his work that's very truth. He's a truth teller as a DP. Mm. And I said to him, he got it right away. He understood these people are real for me. They are absolutely real. This is not, we're not going for like a trompe l'oeil or like we're not tricking anybody. This is when Nereda is here, I cannot even explain to you. Like Sarah Jones doesn't matter. No offense, but there is something very important about, like, especially the people who would normally underestimate me. They hear I have an accent. I want to be like, I speak 2 languages. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want those people to hear me, whether they like me or not. I don't care. And I definitely don't care if they like Sarah Jones. So we really wanted to make sure that the film captured these people. And Josh was so instrumental in helping me see my limitations. I would look at the frame and say, but how is this? And he would say, trust me, I'm going to accomplish what you are telling me you need. And he would do it. So it felt like we had a mind meld that was so helpful. I could trust him. I would look at the shot, but then I could stay Nereda and I would come over and be like, you're under my chin. Como que, what are you doing? Do you know any women? You know what I mean? I would be like, ¿Qué es eso? And he would deal with it. He would deal with whoever was showing up. And I will also say it served really well. My vanity, when you're Lorraine Levine and they're making you, progressively more wrinkles, more everything. Like, thank goodness for the overarching goal of the storytelling got me out of the way in ways I've never experienced, and I think, again, usually I'm on stage, I don't see myself. This is all an outward experience of a conversation, an unspoken back and forth, a call and response sort of energetically with a live audience. This is a completely different thing where the entire reality needs to exist in a way that hopefully reaches someone like you as Nereida is giving her monologue. And I want to say, if I ever get to do a director's cut and people want to sit through a, Wagnerian ring cycle length version of Sell by Date, Lorraine has a monologue about being an older woman and, porn and sexuality. Rashid has a monologue about what he learned about sex and sexuality and his father coming back from Vietnam. Bella has a monologue about sex work and her relationship to sex and sex work. And these were all inspired by the play, monologues in the play.
Wow, uh-huh.
So I hope, who knows what's possible. But the point is the technical aspect, like learning to ask for help, dude, as somebody who's used to being a one-person show, in part because, people are like, wow, your work is so brilliant. I'm like, thanks. It's a childhood trauma response, but sure. They're like, oh, Juilliard, Strasbourg. No, my mom and dad were doctors and they were never home. And I felt like I had to raise my own siblings. That's the school I went to. It was free. I saved a lot. No student loan debt. Anyway, that's right. That's it. It's like I had to ask for a lot of help as an actor, as a director, as a first-time director, especially. Yeah.
We have something very strange in common because after he wrapped that film, Joshua Weinstein shot me in a movie where I played multiple characters. I'm being serious. For Kaveh Zahedi. You have to ask him about it. It's too long to go into. This was in June. And I still remember his smiling face. I just thought, like, that guy it's so important to have like a smiling DP. Yes. I mean, it's so important to just like, even just that is so important to people who are so scared in a movie. It's like there's so much scare. And you as a director for the first time and as a producer and everything, you're worrying about all this other stuff besides what you're doing in the movie. And so you need the person behind the camera to just say, trust me. And
yes,
that's a lot of taking off your shoulders there.
Yes. The entire film was a trust exercise. I had to learn to trust myself. And part of how I did that was finding he's a visionary, I think, Josh Weinstein. I think he can see what's possible when we had other DPs. And let me tell you, this was really challenging. There were some super talented women who I wanted to bring on this journey with me. I felt like, I wanted a feminist dream. My director on when I did the theater piece off Broadway, Carolyn Cantor, wonderful. There's a bonding with a woman who shares this understanding of, feminism, sex, power dynamics that can really, be vital in a partnership. Yes. And there were folks who were like, well, you got to do it like this and you have to make your storyboard like this. And I was like, I don't know from a storyboard. I'm going to tell you what it is. Lorraine, Rashid was like, yo, first I'm going to get in the Uber and then I need y'all to, and people were like, we don't understand. And I'm not saying, the specific women I'm talking about, but Josh just like, there was an understanding of the goal and an sort of instant and direct translation of what I was asking for and the visual kind of language that we got to develop together. And we argued, I was like, this material could be a dirge if we go with sort of sepia, if we go with, too much gritty reality and low light. And he was like, but don't make it, what we would, because I wanted pop candy colors so that when we'd gotten into the bowels of these conversations, I wanted that cognitive dissonance of like, but this feels fun because that's who we are as human beings. I wanted the color and the kind of muting to exist, concurrently that way. And he got that. Anyway, the point is, it was a beautiful, I think, opportunity to learn to trust and sort of give and take.
I just have a small beef with Rashid. I love you, man, but you're hitting on people in this apartment when Sarah's trying to have a serious conversation.
Yeah.
Which I understand as a man, I guess, but I'm trying to figure out why Sarah kept that in. So I'm assuming you bribed her.
Nah, I ain't got to bribe nobody. Nah, me, it's natural charm. Nah, what I want to say, first of all, as a dude, I know you could relate. Shit is complicated, son. It's very complicated. Nobody teaches you, when you with a woman and she look like that, what's the message? The message I got all my life. If a lady look like that, or lady, woman, female, whatever you supposed to say, saying they brought that to the conversation. So I get to respond. I get to reply. If you say, what time is it? I get to say it's fine ass bitch o'clock. I ain't gonna say that. But I'm saying I'm saying, I'm not saying women deserve whatever or that. I'm not even really I'm saying Sarah Jones' mom says it in the thing. We can't be attracted to nobody no more. I just want to know. Let me know the rules. Now, you gonna come out here, you twerking, but I ain't supposed to look. Okay, let me know the rules then.
So Rashid is very much in process himself. And what he doesn't say here, but he does get at in the maybe director's cut one day.
Yes.
Well, really, streaming to this. He talks about his own deep insecurities, right? And I don't know any human beings who don't have some kind of messaging from the time they're little. I need love that I'm not getting, or there's something about me that I have to improve or correct in order to be lovable and loved. I need to be more whatever. As a woman, I need to be more attractive. As a man, I need to be more, virile. Whatever those messages are, we start getting them from pre-verbally, right? Shucking a little, toddler on the chin. You're going to be a lady killer to some boy. You don't know what their gender identity is going to be. You don't know what their sexual orientation is going to be, but this is the society we're in, right? So I think like many men across cultures, many cis men, cis straight men, the message, at least in the US that I see and globally, I've, interviewed people everywhere. There's a great organization called A Call to Men that I love. They talk about the man box. It's like a box. And what do you throw in there? There's football, there's, gentlemen's clubs, there's all these things. And the expectation is that when you're around a woman, you spring into action to be, and there are different ways of doing it, right? You can be a hipster about it. You can be avoidant about it. You might not be the cat call on the street dude. You might be the anxious attachment avoidant dude. I don't know. But the point is that there are these prescribed roles for all of us that I think we can get locked into without even knowing they aren't who we are. And I hope that Rashid and Bryan Cranston talks really poignantly in the film about an experience he had as a kid that opened me. I was like, damn, this is a much bigger conversation about our humanity collectively.
Yes. And isn't it interesting that I wanted to talk to Rashid about that, because it did something to me in that moment where I'm watching it with my newfound, consciousness over the last couple of years. And then this happens and it's touching the thing in me that I'm still trying to deal with there. That it's also about men have this jealousy when guys are like that. And that also touches that. And then it springs out we want to put that down, but it's not out of consciousness. It's out of jealousy and stuff like that. So it's a complicated thing that you're touching in every moment in this thing.
I know. It's still fun though. I promise. If you come, just, like I said, don't. Yeah, it'll be fun. It's a fun ride.
And speaking of ride, when you're in the car in the end, now, I don't want to spoil this. I'm going to speak in a sensitive way, so it's not a spoiler. I rarely have a moment like this where the film is coming to an end, and I have this feeling well, I know this won't happen because it's not that radical, but I wish it would end like this. I wish it would turn around. It was a dream. And then it happened, and I literally jumped up. I'm yelling like a sports game. That's a huge, huge moment. It's a huge moment for the film. It's a huge moment meta-wise, which I'm still trying to figure out. Part of me wants to ask you questions about that. Part of me doesn't want to know the answers. Because I still want that to be working within me, and I don't want to even talk about it here because people still have to see it. But I think that what you're doing there is you're hitting the beast where it hurts. You finally realize through this movie that what has to be taken down almost, or begin to be taken down, or at the very least, this is what we need to be talking about. You know, as someone once said to me, it's the water we swim in. We have to realize we're swimming in the water. Like, you know, otherwise we're just trying to correct things, but the water's still all around us.
And I've heard something similar, like we're in the water, so we don't even know we're wet.
Yes.
Right. And what if the state of being wet, you know, we're meant to be able to breathe. We don't have gills. And we're wondering why we're choking and we're sputtering. And it's like, oh, you're in the water, but you don't know. My hope with the film is that it speaks to the truth of what happened, which is I did have a deal. There was something I worked on where people saw the film, saw the play, the live theater piece, and said, we believe in this. We believe in you. We want to do this with you. Let's do it. And I spent the better part of a year giving everything I had and my characters and interviews similar to what you see in the film. And a giant corporation owns it and I can't touch it and it'll never be seen. And it was so painful to realize that in order to do it the way I wanted to do it, without the corporate anything, I would have to turn around. They weren't going to let me make. It's so I get to have the conversation in the film on screen that speaks to the material that's sitting on a shelf collecting dust. And I'm sorry, but white men, gatekeepers, you know, cishet white men who later were found out to be part of Me Tooing issues and all kinds of stuff, they own my story. They get to determine the narrative. They get to you know, they get to disappear the narrative if they want. And so this in the film is me acknowledging, oh my God, I'm not the only one. There are storytellers. And by the way, it's not just women. It's not just women of color. You know, talk to any actor, talk to any creative person about what it feels like to have a creative vision that you start with and then have it go through the pipeline of executives. And, you know, no offense to anybody who's trying to make art, but there's a machine that very much mimics the larger conversation in the film about who has the right to tell whose stories and who has the power. Why is the power concentrated in the hands of some people? And we get to see how harmful it is to a whole group of people. And yet we aren't able to be honest about it. So that was my goal, there's an expression, rigorous honesty, that I love. And that was kind of the beating heart or the sort of North Star of the film. Let's just tell the truth about what happened wherever we can, and hope that it touches other people's truths. Those nerves that we feel, it makes you feel alive to realize, oh my God, I don't have to be this like doom scrolling, you know, I don't have to give my chi to shopping, you know, numbing and, you know, just sort of trying to not feel anything. It's so much better. The best high I've ever had is being fully alive, telling the truth, being vulnerable, letting this shit out, crying in front of somebody at the movie theater, turning to them, realizing I love myself, I love them, it's okay, we're a fucking mess. Like, that's what I want. I want everybody to have, you know, a journey into the innermost truthful place in ourselves while still having fun. I want that because that's part of our humanity too. And it's one facet of, you know, pathos. Every person I met, every person I interviewed in this film, every executive that, you know, was in the way of the other thing. We all want the same thing. We want to be fucking human. That was the goal. Tell the truth, be human, stay human in the face of all of this. And we heal more.
Sarah Jones, thank you so much. And thank you so much for this film.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I hope, you know, I had copies of Filmmaker magazine when I was a kid. I was like, wow, what would it be like? So this just feels like an incredible full circle reward moment. I'm very grateful to you. And I hope people see the film. I hope it doesn't get buried, which is what the last people said. They said, if you try to make this on your own, we'll bury it.
Wow. It just ignited me more.
Me too. I don't tell everybody that because I'm scared they're going to, you know, make it true.
So now it's a mission. Now it's a mission.
Sell by Date is currently playing in New York and will be streaming on demand on November 8th. Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.